Good morning and good afternoon, LCMS volunteers, and welcome to this video on our volunteer orientation. Together we can. Now, this video should be a good substitute for coming in and sitting down one-on-one, talk with me, so on and so forth. And yes, I am still available to do that, should you choose to do that. But given that you selected to play the video, chances are this should suffice, right? So real quick, what we're going to cover is basically what you need to know about volunteering. We're just covering the basics here. If you have specific questions that aren't covered in the video, please feel free to reach out to me or to the county office, and I'll get you that contact information here later on in the video. So let me switch my screen position, which is currently down and to the right, and move that back up, and we'll go ahead and move forward. So you want to be a volunteer. Kind of sounds like one of those weird intros for a movie or something, right? So yeah, it is hard to do it without you guys, right? Volunteers come in a variety of ages and, well, should be in good physical and mental health. And of course, there's a couple different reasons for that, right? Health-wise, that's to be subjected. That's you got to determine that. You're your own best judgment. Now, if you're someone who is afraid to stand up because around little ones because, they might get knocked over or something like that, then yeah, probably shouldn't be at the elementary school, right? If, you're in good physical health, overall, you can get around by yourself, you should be all right to volunteer. And obviously, it goes with whatever the volunteer work that you're wanting to do. Your physical abilities should coincide with that. Example, if you're wanting to help volunteer and help clean up the school a little bit, you should be able to do that. Bend over, pick things up, be able to throw trash away, so on and so forth. Volunteers can help in the classroom, which is really, really huge. Of course, that goes from elementary school all the way through high school. Volunteers help with our extracurricular activities. That means field trips. We'll talk more about the requirements for field trips here in a few minutes. And of course, when you're on field trips, you get to visit interesting places. But the biggest thing about volunteering is you get to make an impact. You help with student learning. Whether that student learning is accelerated because of your presence in the classroom, or the student learning is accelerated because of the work that you're doing on the grounds, or anything in between. The extracurricular activities and such, like clubs and organizations, those are really, really huge and impactful because those things can often drive students to have better academic success. So let's get to the next slide here. We do have a couple of standards when it comes to volunteering. Again, I'll reiterate this. You should be in good physical and mental health. And volunteers can be of any age, except for chaperoning. Chaperones have special rules applied to them, right? You shall receive information regarding rules and regulations, which this helps to fulfill that. And you will receive knowledge and instruction regarding policies and practices and regarding the position, right? So again, this helps fulfill that. I'll also have some supplemental documentation that covers this in regular writing as well. You shall be provided with proper supervision during any kind of training and on campus during school, right? In other words, somebody should be with you, whether that's a certified teacher, you're working with a janitor, somebody from the staff, so on and so forth. But you should always be supervised on campus. You should be familiar with the immediate objectives that you're working with students with. Example, you should be familiar with math if you're helping somebody with math. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you that I'm probably not going to be the one that should volunteer to coach somebody on how to be a good speller or for the spelling bee. Okay, quite frankly, my spelling is not the best in the world, right? I am a product of, the spell check generation, and I'm okay with that. And I got other things going on that help me that prevent me from spelling really, really awesomely, right? But I understand strategy, so I can help strategize, right? In the classroom, I might be more suited to personal strategies and studying habits, or reading, or doing simple math, not complex math. So those are the things that I would want to volunteer for. Or if I was a former musician, I would work with the musicianship, so on and so forth. In other words, if you're not really good with math, you probably shouldn't volunteer to help out in the math class in algebra or calculus or pre-calculus, if you know what I mean, right? All volunteers should be appointed by the school board. There's a certain process that has to be gone through, including background checks. We're going to talk about that here in a few slides. But you will be appointed, and once you're appointed, you are ready to serve. And of course, you'll be provided protection under the law where possible. There's liability insurances and so on and so forth, of course, where possible, and shall be to assign only to staff members requesting their services. Okay, so if you've already been in contact with a staff member, yeah, you should be good. You can work something out with them, so on and so forth. Now, for Lake City Middle School, I've already had multiple volunteers reach out to individual teachers wanting to help them out in the classroom, whether that's for earning time for community service, or whether that's earning time in the classroom because of a degree fulfillment or what have you. As long as you have something worked out with somebody, we should be good. Just check in, do the process, and we'll talk about that here in a few moments. And of course, just make contact with me so I know what's going on. All right, let's see here. To sign up to be a volunteer, it's pretty easy. All you really need to do is go to ColumbiaK12.com. When you're on the website, you should immediately see on the bottom row, departments, and then volunteer, and you should see a volunteer application there. And that'll bring you to a separate page, right? Once you're on that page, you want to review the instructions, fill out all personal information, okay? And there's going to be a background check, so you're going to have to give up certain personal information. You're going to select the school at which you would like to serve. That's really, really huge, because if you don't select a school and you want to volunteer there, okay, then, you can't just show up and say, hey, I'd like to volunteer today, because if you're not on the list, it's not going to work. All right. So we want to make sure that you are selecting the schools that you want to volunteer at. And then, of course, indicate what you would like to do while serving as a volunteer. Of course, you're going to review the rules and regulations. That's, again, on that website at ColumbiaK12.com. And, of course, submit forms. Approved volunteers will be posted on the approved volunteer list. Once you're on that list, and I see the name on that list, and that list gets published every month or so, and it's on a separate Google Drive that we have access to, then, hey, you should be good to go, and we can get you going and rolling. All right, so I'm going to divert my eyes over to this side because I have some verbiage here that's just easier for me to read. It's summarized over here, but I'm going to go ahead and just kind of read it verbatim over here, so it kind of helps fulfill what I need to fulfill here. All right. Please know that you are welcomed here, all right? Sometimes as staff, we get caught up with other tasks and such, and we forget to say thank you, but we do appreciate you being here. You're going to have to be familiar with all regulations, policies, and procedures of the Volunteers Program. Again, this should help fulfill that, right? When you come, make sure you enter through the office area and sign in as a volunteer. You will need your driver's license, okay? Our school receives recognition for the number of volunteer hours accumulated, so we keep track of that. And then, volunteers tell us, we get it, getting the recognition is not important, but, we think it is important for that volunteering as well. You want to make sure that you wear your assigned ID badge. It'll be printed out for you. You can just wear it on your shirt. Make sure it's visible, and that's really important. I would hate to have something called as an emergency on campus because somebody didn't recognize you, and then you weren't wearing the badge, and or the sticker, and, cause an emergency like a lockdown or something like that. So it's really important that you wear the badge. All righty. You want to be prompt, dependable, and in regular attendance. Please follow the school's guidelines for the dress code. In other words, model our dress code. It's important to be comfortable while working, but remember you are serving, and it's an important role model, if you will, for our students. Also, you got to maintain confidentiality. As a volunteer, you're going to hear things or interact with things or see things and so on and so forth. In some cases, you may work with students that have certain, learning or behavior problems. And we ask that your cooperation is used for maintaining that confidentiality. In the case of an emergency, you want to make sure that you're familiar with safety, and you want to make sure that you stay with the person that you're reporting to, or your teacher or the staff member. Make sure that people know where you're at all times during an emergency. If you are injured, you are covered by liability insurance. Report any injury as minor as it may seem, because sometimes even the smallest little cut can turn bad. All right. And make sure that you see the school secretary so that a report can be followed. If you miss a session that you are expected to be at, make sure you're communicating with the assigned teacher or staff member. And then, of course, it says over here, keep talking to a minimum. What they're basically saying is don't just go over there and have a social time with the teacher, because the teacher has a responsibility to the classroom itself while students are there, right? So, hey, we look forward to you being there, but we just got to make sure that we're doing what we need to do. Again, be familiar with safety rules, fire drills, disaster processes, and procedures. Let's see here. Ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. Let's see here. If you need more instructions in order to perform a task, just ask. Establish a method of communication with somebody, either through notes, phone calls, text messages, emails, so on and so forth. If you desire a change in assignment, tell the teacher, volunteer coordinator, but don't stop coming. If you'd rather be doing something else, hey, that's okay. We can find something for you. There's always a need somewhere on campus. Be patient. Sometimes some students learn differently with different timing and in different ways. And then finally, enjoy the moments. You are making an impact, right? So, basically, I say accept the ideas, the backgrounds, the values, the vocabulary. They may be different, but you are making a difference, okay? And give yourself some moment to really appreciate those opportunities to serve and the impact that you have made. As far as other important things, I'm going to keep my attention over here. You can kind of get the summary over here, right? Let's see, volunteers, it says must be 21 years of age to chaperone. All right. So in order to chaperone, you got to be 21 or older. Okay. So that means for say you decide to chaperone for 8th grade grad adventure, got to be 21 or older. All righty. Let's see here. Legal guardians under the age of 21 may chaperone field trips, but cannot chaperone students other than their own personal child. In other words, if you're chaperoning, you got to be with your own child during that event if you're under the age of 21. All right, there you go. Volunteers cannot give out medications to students at any time, and this is true of all volunteers, even those who work in the clinic. If a student requires medication, they will be escorted to the school clinic or go there, and only authorized personnel may assess the situation and administer medications wherever indicated. Volunteers cannot punish students, even if a student is not behaving when you're working with them. You can't punish them, all right? So the old days of sticking your nose on the wall or holding out buckets of sand, that's not going to work, all right? So no verbal punishment, threatening, bullying, that kind of thing, you use your best judgment, obviously. Should a student misbehave while you're working with them, make sure you bring that to the attention of either the teacher you're working with, the staff member you're working with, front office, administrators, so on and so forth. Now, volunteers can remind students about school rules. Hey, don't forget, we're supposed to be doing this. Hey, one of the ideas of being a falcon here at LCMS is leading by example. Are you leading by example right now? Are you focusing on learning? That sort of thing, right? And you can also even just say, hey, obviously we're not getting along together very well. Let's go ahead and end today's session and we'll continue at another date, right? You could also do that. Volunteers cannot divulge personal information about a student. Again, that goes back to the confidentiality thing. And that's especially true with accordance to Florida Statute 228.093. That means academic work, family background, standardized test scores, attendance records. Let's see, counselor observations, health data, grades. Let's see here. There are interests reports, teacher ratings and observations, and then other patterns as well. So again, maintain confidentiality. And of course, please do not post pictures of students. Even if you're having a great time and you're at Grad Adventure, all right? please don't take pictures with other students in there because some students have certain protections for photographs. All right, next slide here. A couple of things that volunteers must not do. Volunteers must not assume the responsibility of the supervision of a class in the absence of a certified teacher. There are other people on campus who can do that, all right? So even if an emergency comes up, you can't stand in. Somebody should be provided for that individual. You cannot assume the responsibility for the discipline of students. Again, we just covered the discipline thing, right? Volunteers cannot establish instruction objectives. In other words, if the teacher has a plan in place and some goals, you can't deviate from those plans, okay? So you should all have like the same goal in mind, be working towards the same thing. Let's see here. Volunteers must not make decisions regarding the appropriateness of certain teaching materials. In other words, if you were asked to present something, present it. Don't just say, nah, they didn't seem to be working with it, so we took it and looked at magazines instead. Unless that's part of the plan, okay? Shouldn't deviate from that. Volunteers must not discuss with parents the performance of students or write comments on papers. Volunteers must not grade papers, okay? So that's something that the teacher or staff member should be doing. And of course, volunteers should not bring other children to school when volunteering at the school or chaperoning a school-sponsored activity. That goes without saying. So if you have additional questions, feel free to contact me. I'm Mr. Cadle. My information is right there on the screen. I'm the curricular resource teacher and volunteer coordinator here at LCMS. In fact, if you just call on LCMS and ask about volunteering, they'll probably direct you to me, okay? And if you have questions overall with the district, you can also go to that website as I explained earlier. Simply get the contact information from going to the department's volunteers, and you'll see a lot of information on that page. We look forward to working with you. Thank you for watching this video, and we look forward to having you on campus as a volunteer.